What's your name?
Rachel. Rachel Jonah. I go here by Rachel Jonah or Rachel Jonah Shalev. I added that name.
Were you born in Hamilton?
Yes. Wait, I think I was born in Dundas, actually. I think I was probably born in Dundas and then moved to Hamilton when I was about a year, but yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
So, how old were you when your family made Aliyah?
I was 15.
So can you talk to me a little bit about what that was like for you?
Yeah, well, the truth is I came a year earlier before my parents, and I lived with an uncle in Tel Aviv, so I was really 14. And I was going into 9th grade that year, and basically there wasn't any Jewish school for me to go to in Hamilton. So the options were for me to go to Toronto or to go to a boarding school somewhere. And I wanted to go to public school, but that was out of the question for my father. So we came up with this plan of me coming for a year on my own, and I didn't know it, but they were planning on making Aliyah the next year. That wasn't at all clear. None of us really knew that. I never heard it discussed. So I ended up coming here for the year, and I learned Hebrew really quickly because I was in Tel Aviv in the 70s and people did not speak English like they do today. So I was put into an Israeli school where there was one or two other English speakers in the entire school, or at least that I knew, and it was just right into the Hebrew. So it was actually quite easy for me to get the language, and that made things a lot easier. I had a very social Israeli, social life there with Israelis and basically no English speakers. So it was actually ideal. When my parents came the next year, I was the one who did all the answering the phone and all the documents and translations, and so I was completely Israeli within a year. So that was it. And in terms of how it was, maybe Ruthie already said that, I don't know what her take on it was, but life in Hamilton was, at the time, for us as teenagers, young teenagers, we did not have any freedom. We did not have any, we couldn't go anywhere really where we weren't driven to, or where it wasn't kind of an organized get-together like NCSY or that kind of thing. And so we really didn't have any independence and freedom. And when we came here, it was incredibly free, and there was the element of fear and intermarriage and hanging out with a lot of non-Jews, which was concerning for my father, as having 3 teenage girls. It just wasn't an option. It wasn't a worry, it wasn't a concern. So suddenly we had this incredible amount of freedom that was amazing. And I remember it feeling like we had come into Technicolor. It was like the Wizard of Oz when it becomes colorful, when the color comes in. It's kind of like we had this black and white life, and it was always cold. It was either very cold or very hot. And we didn't live outside, and suddenly we're outside all the time. We're on the buses, we're hitchhiking all over the country. At the time, Sinai still was part of Israel, and the thing to do was to hitchhike to the Sinai and just live there, for a couple of weeks at a time. And that's what we did. And so it was really amazing. And there was the only thing I missed, of course, was my friends. And also in the 70s, things were not as, in terms of nice things here, and nice toilet paper, and nice restaurants and cafes. You didn't have any of that. It was really quite an adventure. And my parents didn't really know what we were doing because they didn't know what was going on and what the rules were. And so we had that added freedom of not having our parents on top of us in the same way. And it was really exciting here in the 70s. It was really at the end of the 70s. That was like 78, 79. I can only remember it in that way. It was really wonderful. Well, altogether 34 years, out of which I wasn't here for 10. I spent 10 years outside the country.
Where?
I spent almost 8 years in Seattle, and I spent 2.5 years in Asia at that time, which is also a common thing for Israelis to do.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a yoga teacher, and I'm a body-mind therapist. We found here in this area a community that's very like-minded to how we are. Within the radius that we live in, maybe the 2-kilometer, 3-kilometer radius here. There's
Here in Baka.
Baka, Talpiot, Kataman area. There's, in terms of, we're kind of more lean towards being renewal Judaism, which is where the Judaism is more connected to things that are relevant in your life. It's not just something that's the rules and the laws, but it's more the rules and the law. It's more integrated to emotional realities, to ecological things, peace-related things. We're Shomer Shabbat and we keep kosher. And in the renewal community, you've got there's Orthodox people who go, and there's non-Jews who go, and there's the whole range. So you've got people who show up there in a kippah with their head covered, women with their head covered, and you've got nuns and priests and imams coming, and then you've got every kind of Jew. So there's a huge range of eclectic Jews living around here. And so whatever you want, you've got it. It's just like, I don't think that there's anywhere in the world where, first of all, most renewal communities are kind of schwach. They're kind of not very serious. But the one here, it's serious because you've got people that are coming from all over the world, and you've got a core, actually, Shomer Shabbat group that's really, really committed. And so you come there, and it's just the singing and the music and the instruments, and you're transported. It's like being in an Indian ashram, but it's all Jewish. So I'm saying, I don't think there's anywhere in the world where you could find so many like-minded people in terms of community. I would never have had that in Hamilton or that area there. So that's been really great. And which is why I chose to live in this area. It became possible to live in this area, and it was like, yes, because there's a lot of people around here who I can resonate with, spiritually, emotionally, culturally. There's a lot of culture here also. There's, within walking distance, I've got, the avant-garde cinemas. I've got all kinds of music, what's the word, where they, venues, kind of music venues with every kind of music. Also avant-garde stuff, poetry readings, just kind of, I don't have to even get in my car. Well, I left Israel when I had very young children for Seattle. So when I left for Seattle, I had an infant and a 2-year-old.
Oh.
So they were really raised in America. And when my daughter was almost 8. So she's now been here for the past almost 6 years.
Does she like it?
Yeah, she loves it. She also has she's almost 14. She's an unbelievable social life. She can be out, late at night. She can be out with her friends here on Emek Raphaim, in the summer at least, till 11:30, 12, and they're in groups, and you have to worry about them. They're together, they're protected. She has a really nice life here. She goes to a very good school called Hartman Girls, which is kind of also a feminist, pluralistic religious girls' school. Next year it's going to be walking distance. So that's what I love about living here, is that I can walk to the old city, I can walk to town, I can walk into Talpiot. My whole family lives in walking distance from here. I can walk to all the malls in Talpiot. And then right here on Emek Raphaim, 3 minutes walk from here, I have just every single store, cafe, restaurant. Not that my biggest thing is having materialism all around me, but it's not just the fact that it's convenient. There's also, like I said, the culture. There's also the religious side, the community side. So now, in terms of when we came here and went to school here, I would say that I did not get a very good high school education, but that was just because I didn't do any research. We didn't know to do research about schools. And at the time, there weren't so many choices for religious schools like there are today. In the 70s, you had 1 or 2 choices. Now you have a multitude of choices. So my education was kind of
I'm very curious about the range, the spectrum of dati, what it is to be dati. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, and that's another thing like that you have here. You have a huge range. We're in a place like Beit Shemesh or other communities where they're more, what's the word?
Homogenous?
No, or more homogenous. In Jerusalem, especially this part of Jerusalem, this side, the south end, it's very, very, multi, I'm just trying to think of the word, but very varied in terms of religious observance. Because everybody's kind of observant or traditional, at least traditional. And then in terms of dress, say within my chevra that I have here, there'll be people who wear shorts, people who wear sleeveless, and they still keep Shabbat, and then pants, like say what I'm wearing, pants and maybe something that's not, kind of low cut, short sleeves, not covering your hair, and it's all kind of acceptable. I lived in Seattle for 7.5 years, and it's really a beautiful place. I mean, you cannot complain about Seattle. It's just, the nature there, the people there are really nice, it's polite, it's comfortable, it's convenient, it's beautiful, everything about it. But I really felt the galut. I felt that I was in galut. I did not feel like I belonged ever, and I always wanted to come back. And we were supposed to go for 1 or 2 years, and it turned into 7.5. I don't think there was a day that I was there that I wasn't yearning to come back. And I think part of it, when you feel connected here, when you really feel connected here, it's very hard to live anywhere else. But you just don't have the same quality. You don't have the same. There's an energy, there's a spirit, there's a feeling of home, there's a feeling of belonging that I don't think I've never felt anywhere. The only place I felt it was India a little bit, and the Israelis feel very comfortable in India. There's Yehudi and Hodi. The words are the same word, without the yud. Hodu is Jewish without the yud. So there's some kind of interesting connection, especially between Israelis and India, that Israelis always feel at home in India, always. Out of the whole world, that's where they feel most comfortable. It's just so huge yoga community here, huge. I mean, it's enormous, and they bring big teachers here from all over the world, and I think the yoga here also. I mean, the yoga in America was all very much about the body and about body oriented, less spiritualized. And here in the yoga classes you get Torah concepts, you get more, it's just less focused on physical things, and it's much more, no, I'm sure there's teachers like that also, but what I found in Seattle in the yoga community is I feel much better here. Not that it was bad, it's so different from here because, and part of it is that there's more of a survival feeling here. There's more of it's less about how you look in general, not just in yoga, or how you come off. I mean, we're losing some of that now because things are changing, and we're always 20 years behind America or behind Canada, mostly. But people here are very, very real. The book Poser, the whole thing about posing. There's more a sense that people can be authentic and really say what they want, what they mean, and that's not all of this fluff. That's what it is. In yoga in America, there's always fluff, like, how did that feel? And pat yourself on the back for coming to yoga class, and all this stuff. They don't do any of that here. It's very, it's like the culture here. It's very direct. And when you don't live here, you really feel the difference. As soon as you leave, as soon as you go, you're in a different airport or in a different zone, it feels different. The energy feels different. When I'm in an airplane and the airplane leaves and you leave the zone, I immediately feel the change.
Your sister talked about energy. I had turned off the camera by then, but she also talked about the energy of this place.
Right, it's the energy, because it's that you can't take this energy and put it somewhere else. It exists here in this place. It's in the land of Israel. And so once it's under your skin and it's in you, it's very hard to be anywhere else for a long period of time. At least that's my experience. I know I'm not the only one like that. I know people leave for a week and they just can't wait to get back. Even if things are hard here, even if things are harder here than in Dundas, where everything's nice and organized and you know what to expect. I mean, the world is changing now, and things are less clear for everyone. But we've been living like that all along, so for us that's just part of reality. So that's what makes me stay, because there's really, I've tried leaving and it just doesn't, it's just not possible. It's basically not possible. Maybe if my family wasn't here, it would be different. Maybe because right now I have 2 parents who are alive, thank God, and 3 siblings and 11 nieces and nephews here in walking distance. So that's pretty amazing and very, very unusual We don't know anybody like that.